unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
What is up, everyone? This is Hater Radio. My name is Chris McLean. As always, I'm here with my co-host, Ian Gibson. How are you?
I'm doing very good.
Yeah, so a lot has happened in the last 3 days.
Yeah.
It's been probably, honestly, to try to keep up with all this news, it's been bewildering because, you know, we cover USC, who really hasn't had much news because they're just going to probably a smaller bowl game. And then UCLA had fired their coach in season, and then Florida fired their coach, and then Sunday Alex Golesh left USF to go to Auburn, and then later after that John Summerall got hired at Florida, and then Monday UCLA hired Bob Chesney from James Madison, which we'll talk about in a second, and then today on National Signing Day for high school recruits, the biggest news of all, probably the biggest offensive coordinator coaching piece that was being rumored at several different spots. Brian Hartline, the OC at Ohio State, decides to go to USF, and we'll talk about that in a second. But let's talk about the UCLA first, because I do not want to ignore my LA brethren and sisters. So I will say, with all these three hires, with Chesney, Hartline, and Summerall, it's kind of amazing that these three schools seem to have done the best out of all of the coaching hiring so far. Like, it literally seems like it. Like, and it's kind of wild that all three did well. It wasn't like just one or two of them did well. It's literally all three. And considering that USF only had 3 days, and I know I saw some reports about Rob Higgins it had actually had Hartline in mind for many years. So, you know, it was moved quickly for that. We'll talk about that. But Chesney, you know, he was a prize piece, rumored to go to a lot of places. His record stands out. Like, I'm looking at it right now on Wikipedia. He was at a lot of smaller schools. I don't know how to say this school's name. I think it's Salve Regina. He was 23-9 there. One of the seasons he went 9-2. He was at Assumption, where they went 44-16. What?
The Greyhounds.
Greyhounds. Okay, I didn't know they were good. This is why G5 Gibson comes in the clutch, friends, because he knows.
I've also been playing a lot of old school NCAA basketball, so you get a lot of these other teams in
here.
Yes,
true. Yes, I love that about the basketball games at a lot of schools. So he was at Assumption, 44-16. He had 2 11-2 seasons there, and then he went on to Holy Cross, the Crusaders. He had, a 44-21 record. He had a 12-1 season, a 10-3 season. The shortened season with COVID, he went 3-1. Who knows? Maybe he could have gone better. Just the season was shortened. Then he moved on to James Madison, where he is 20-5 at the school so far. 9-4 last year, 11-1 this year. The guy just wins. I don't know a ton about his offensive scheme. I don't know. Honestly, I wasn't able to really do a deep dive into him. I'll probably look more into him on maybe for Sunday's show, or maybe no, because Sunday we'll do the playoff preview. Maybe one of the Heisman shows. I'll give a little dive into what he's about offensively. But either way, he's a winner. UCLA has struggled the last several years. Even when they had Chip Kelly, it didn't really ever take off. The best they were was 9-3, and they still just had some rough years. And, when Deshaun Foster was here, I think he won 6 or 5 games in the like year and a half that he was when he was the head coach. And it's a shame because he was an alum and it didn't work out. But this guy can win. Even if this is like a stepping stone into another job, this should set up UCLA for potential to move forward out of this kind of like shadow realm that they've been in for the last couple of years, and maybe they can start winning games. He already has Nico there, so like maybe he can convince Nico to stay, which I think he can, given his track record. And even if he does leave, he'll leave the program better than he got there, and that's just what you do if you're a little bit of a smaller program than some of these rest of these big time schools. You got to win as best you can with the coaches that you have, and then just keep hiring a better keep finding the diamonds in the rough, keep seeking out the coaches that are not like the conventional Power 4 coach. You got to go find a James Madison coach, or like Florida found with John Summerall at Tulane, or an offensive coordinator. That's just the way you do it. It's rough because sometimes it's a bit of a crapshoot and it may not work, but you have to take the chance and hope that it will. You have any thoughts on this one before we move on?
Yeah, this is definitely a hire that makes sense for UCLA. They can't, obviously in the way the program is at now, they need to get an up-and-coming guy because a lot of the big names probably aren't going to jump to UCLA right now. But Chesney, a lot of his is, especially at James Madison, we saw it with Holy Cross. They won, I think it was 4 or 5 straight Patriot League Conference championships. It was about doing more with less, and he's done a very good job of that, especially at James Madison. And the thing is, too, is that where James Madison was at was not like a rebuild. And we'll talk about that with Heartland, too. What he did very well was taking what Cignetti left and keeping it going. There wasn't like this big dramatic shift that we see with a lot of coaching turnovers where there's usually a letdown or a drop. James Madison picked up where they left off when he took over, which is a very encouraging sign. Him going to UCLA, the big thing obviously is, and I said this with a lot of Group of 5 coaches, obviously I said it with Summerall and Florida Gators, there's a world of difference between winning in the Sun Belt and now winning in the Big Ten. You have to beat USC. You have to beat Oregon, Washington. You now have to face Ohio State, Michigan probably. You have to face the big boys now. And with a program like UCLA where it's at right now, where it's behind the 8 ball, you're going to have to find creative ways to catch up. Now, they clearly showed UCLA is capable of doing that last season, getting these upset wins. But with him, it's going to be very interesting to see how he attacks the portal, what coaches he hires. Is he going to bring James Madison's staff, or is he going to try to upgrade, try to push some other coaches? But all in all, I think this would be like we said, we're not going to know until it happens. I think first couple years we're going to have to maybe give him some breathing room, especially how the telltale sign with how a coach is doing early on is how well is he recruiting and using the transfer portal.
Yeah.
If UCLA is still kind of like 30-40 range recruiting, they're not getting a lot of talented players, or not really attacking the portal well, there might be some issues there. But if he's able to get these guys in, which seeing what he's done at James Madison, especially defensively, we'll talk about it in the Sun Belt Championship preview, UCLA, there should at least be a lot of guys on the defensive side entering the portal that should be excited to go to UCLA because there's going to be a lot of starting positions open. So that's what I'll say with him. We'll see how it goes, but I think this is a hire that makes sense for UCLA.
Yeah, and I love it. I mean, there's a lot to like about this area. LA is a great area to live. The weather is phenomenal year round. There's a ton of stuff to do. He's lived Northeast, whatever those areas. I'm sure there's decent, nice places to live, but LA is a really great place to live. It's a great place to be for a few years. Even if he's only here for 2 or 3 years, he can, step up his game, move to a bigger job, and have a good life. And I think he saw that. He's like, this is an attractive job. It's a Big Ten job. I feel like, some of the struggles that we didn't mention was the fact that the athletic director at UCLA is a bit mired in some criticism from the fans, and they've been very upset with how he has performed with the athletic department. And there is some rightful criticism with that, and I understand where they're coming from. But with this hire, if it was the AD or if it was the whatever organization that helped with the coaching search, they got their man. They got the guy, and it doesn't matter. Like, yes, the guy, the AD, maybe not perfect, but at this point, you've got to get a good hire, and they did, and they can move forward. So let's move on to those wonderful USF Bulls that were wearing our gear because we're proud. This is a great day. Honestly, I am like, I've had a couple days of bad sleep, and so I like went to bed late because I was watching the Duke Florida game last
Oh
night.
God.
Oh, I watched it on tape. I taped it, so I like didn't get to watch it till later when I got home, and so I like was watching it till late at night, and I had trouble sleeping, and then I like woke up this morning and was like still like half asleep around like 7, 8 in the morning because I like wanted to stay in bed as long as I could. I looked back at my phone, and I was an hour late, but boom, all those news just like lit up the timeline. And, Brian Hartline is now the head coach at South Florida. And I knew it was a possibility. I tweeted out the other day, shout out to Seth Varnador with Pod by the Bay, with the Bay Area Examiner. Seth did an extensive list, did very well researched, had his information. He even did like a presentation that they showcased on his research. And of course, one of them again, he had Golish on his list last time, and then he had Hartline on this list. Most people thought that Hartline was not going to come here. Like they thought it was going to be someone else, maybe a coordinator, but like someone not as like prestige as Hartline, because Hartline is considered like the end all be all of recruiters. Like his list of wide receiver recruits, it is through the roof. Jeremiah Smith, Smith Najigba, Marvin Harrison Jr., Abuku with the Bucks, like the Carnell Tate, like it goes on and on. It is ridiculous, the wide receiver list for that he has recruited, and he is specifically responsible and developing them as well. So it's not just recruiting; it's then finding like getting those recruits into the details of wide receiver play. And he's done such a tremendous job. And I don't know what he's going to be, because there's no guarantee that Hartline's going to come in and he's just going to be a winner or whatever and come in and like the offense is going to be amazing. A lot of how the offense is done at Ohio State is mainly through Ryan Day. And I mean, I've heard some things where it might be that Hartline is the play caller, but who truly knows? I mean, you don't really get to like know for sure. They're like, even the thing with like Jeff Scott, like he wasn't really the play caller, and we didn't find out till late. So it's like, it does kind of hurt. But I will say Hartline played in the NFL. He played for Ohio State. He's had several good years with the Dolphins, and he was with Ohio State almost from the very beginning in his coaching career. Yeah, he hasn't been anywhere else. So he literally was with Ohio State for like 10 years when Urban was there, and then came on with Ryan Day as well. And, he's a young guy. He's 38 years old. I don't know. This seems like if there were to be like a possibility of the hires, I would have thought this was the least likely. I would have loved it, but I would have been like, no, this is probably the least likely of the outcomes. And to say that Rob Higgins had this planned out for days in advance. I mean, Higgins knew about this, like he said for years he had been planning on going after Hartline. And that is tremendous research and preparedness and thoroughness. And I have been the biggest fan of Rob Higgins. I knew a lot of the USF fans had talked about it when they were trying to hire a new athletic director and now the athletic CEO. what Rob has taken over. And like, the plan was to go after Rob. Like, it was like, he's a USF grad. He had a lot. He's done a lot for the Tampa Bay area, but it was like, we need him on board. And he has been such a breath of fresh air, a like shining example of what is great about the Tampa Bay area and the University of South Florida. And I am such a proud alum to like see him, a fellow alum, to like succeed like this, and to his very first hire literally steps up to the plate and knocks it out of the park. I'm talking like Shohei Ohtani style, like straight out of Dodger Stadium. And like, it was just, man, it was like that hire reverberated throughout college football today. Like, it is like, it devastated Penn State fans because they thought they had a shot at him. And just, man, I've never seen anything like it. And it's like, to lose Alex Golesh, who was a great coach, who had done very well, didn't live up to the expectations at the end here, but still left the program in a tremendous spot. And now it's not only are they in a tremendous spot, new OC. I know we keep talking about the new OC. It's coming in a year, like a year and a half now. The revenue sharing money is going up, so there's going to be a ton of money going into NIL and to assistant coaches' pay, and then also the potential of maybe getting into a bigger conference, and that is huge because the ACC or maybe the Big 10 or maybe the Big 12, one of those three are going to come calling, and if that happens and USF is primed to take advantage of that, this is a huge hire to do that. Like, you could see in 2 years from now with Hartline, if he's winning, if he wins one or two American Conference championships, like, you could see it like right away being people being like, oh yeah, we need that brand with us right now. And I'm excited. This is I said it, like, someone tweeted out like about signing day, and I was like, best signing day ever. And this is not even a player. And considering that the signing day recruits that came in didn't know what coach it was going to be, hats off to you gentlemen for coming in. And I really appreciate you guys doing it because you came in for the university and love of the school. And, that I think there was like, I don't know what the total number was by.
I think it was 17.
Yeah, it was something sizable, not something just to whatever. It's like, that's pretty decent considering there was no coach and no idea who it was going to be until this morning. And just, man, I'm through the roof right now. I'm through the moon. I'm super excited. Ian, I want to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, so clearly this was the one that a lot of coaching search, things popped up. And what I heard was they were aiming for a top coordinator from Alabama or another Tennessee type. But and Hartline's name popped up, and everybody knows Hartline, especially in Florida, because he's the one who gets the guys like Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah.
And that's why I thought of, like, he would fit well, but I don't know if he would kind of come to USF, considering Penn State is open still. I thought for sure, with how bad the search is going for Penn State, Hartline would jump to Penn State to take over that job. And I think he would be pretty successful at that. But him seeing USF, seeing the position they're in, really is really impressive for USF. This is, I agree, probably the biggest hire USF has made, I think, since, I don't know, I guess, like, in terms of, like, how big of a deal it is. I remember Skip Holtz and Charlie Strachan being big deals, but I don't think it was anywhere as this. Because you're getting a guy who is, not only is he the offensive coordinator for one of the best offenses in the Big Ten for the past decade, but the wide receivers coach. Like, we've said for years, Ohio State is wide receiver you want any disproof, go look in the NFL when they do the Sunday Night Football and see what school those wide receivers are at. And him coming to Florida, like I said, where he has dominated recruiting in Florida, now he gets to be in the, like, you don't have to, like, sell a kid like, oh, bring the family up to Columbus. No, you can just sell them coming to Tampa, which is a way better sell. Here's the thing. Obviously, on paper, it looks great, and it is a big deal for USF to get their guys, especially when I didn't think it was a possibility.
Yeah.
But we've said this, obviously we're going to have to see how it works with him once he starts coaching. But he has to realize, and I think a lot of people need to realize this too, from the outside, USF is in win now mode. This is not when Golish came in and the program was a mess. It was a disaster where getting to a bowl game was worthy of rushing the field, which is what me and George did, which rightfully so. We haven't won a bowl game since 2000.
Shout out to George.
Yeah. Well, we hadn't won a bowl game since 2017. So, yeah, that was worthy. Going to the Boca Raton Bowl and beating Syracuse, that was worthy of rushing the field. But the expectation now, as it has been for now 2 years, is winning the AAC. Win your conference championship. And with Hartline, there really is no excuse because we see how well he can recruit, how well he's done as offensive coordinator, how well he's developed. It is time to take that next step, and he has to be the guy to do that. That's what I'm saying where, for me personally as a fan, I don't know, obviously I want USF to win, but I'm going to be as much as I was on Golish and USF this year for not making the AAC, I'm going to be just as much, if not more so, right now because this is a completely different situation Hartline's walking into. The program is on the upswing. They just need to make and win that conference championship, and they are picking you as the guy to do it, and you have to deliver, which I think he can. Now we have to see. I want to see how he does on the transfer portal. I want to see how his first recruiting class works next year. I'm not going to say he's going to be stealing 5 stars and stuff like that. That'd be awesome if he could. But if there's guys in Central Florida, I'm sorry?
Chris Henry Jr., he hasn't decided where he wants to go. Because Hartline left Ohio State, he didn't commit there. And then he's allegedly between USC and I think someone else, but I don't know. That would be crazy.
That would be crazy. But I mean, realistically, I'm not going to say they're going to be, because there's only been one 4-star signed since 2019 in USF. But now with Hartline, that's a real possibility that you could get these guys, ones that maybe while Florida and the other SEC schools are fighting over it, you get the other guys that they're not paying attention to, and you just build an absolute monster juggernaut of a group of 5 team that can really go toe-to-toe with anybody and knock on the door to the playoff. Because I've said that there is no reason why USF should not be in this position right now. And now with Hartline, they absolutely can be, and they can get better. So I'm like you. I'm very excited with the hire, especially because it was a very full court shot hitting type of chance of getting him, and the fact that and I don't think Hartline's smart. He knows Florida is his backyard. He knows how to recruit. I know it's very difficult for him who lives and breathes. He played at Ohio State, literally was an assistant coach there for over a decade and has been in the room as in the offense for the same level. But he knows USF. I mean, comparatively speaking, he probably saw the potential USF had and thinks he can take it on. And I'm hopeful he can. But like I said, you're in win now mode. It's not rebuild mode. It's win now mode. And he has to deliver.
Yeah, the one thing I wanted to, while you were pontificating, I was thinking about it, Seth Varnador had said something about the one drawback or the thing that might be somewhat of a not a problem, but something that might raise its head is that Hartline has not recruited at this level. So he's only ever recruited at the high end level, like you said, with the 5 stars. So is he going to be able to recruit and get into there and find those diamonds in the rough? I think he can. I mean, I think it's also going to help the fact that he is a developer. It's not just that he can recruit. It's he can make those guys into NFL players. It's yes, you have talent, but he makes them even better when they get finished. And just having that right there is going to raise the recruit level of who goes to USF because they're going to be like, oh, that guy, especially wide receiver wise, he's going to make me an NFL player. I'm like, he's going to, like, now you've got Singleton, Koger, and Nimrod. And I'm, they probably were 2 days ago, yeah, I should go with Golish. Now thinking about it, like, man, like Golish got me here, but like, Hartline could get me to the next level, like literally, and get me paid. So like, it would behoove those guys to really like heed the warning signs, like, hey, maybe I should do this. And like, I'm a little like on the fence. I'm like, what should happen with Byron Brown? I think it'd probably be a lot of money to keep him, which would not be great as far as allocation of funds. But at the same time, like, who else is there quarterback wise? Like, I don't think USF really has anyone right now on the roster outside of Byram. And then, like, I don't know if there was one in the class. I think there was a guy. And I don't know, like, he's a freshman. So, like, how good would he be? So, like, you would be in a kind of a precarious situation. But like you said, transfer portal-wise raises all kinds of opportunities here. There's a window here with Ohio State. Going to play a lot of games probably into the transfer portal season. So that may be difficult, but hopefully he can navigate it definitely enough that does his duties for Ohio State and can rely on Rob Higgins and whoever else is like the GM at USF that can take care of this stuff and like get the recruiting nailed down and get the transfers in there. So I'm excited. Do you have anything else on this topic, or can we move on?
Win the AAC, and then I can die happy.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to Florida real quick, and then we'll call it a preview show, because this is what we do on Wednesdays. We preview games. Oh man, my link to my lights is out, so let me see if I can close this out. Hold on a second. Technology. It's not a live show or anything,
yeah. Do they want to see my jerseys?
What?
Do save time? Do you want to see my jerseys?
No. Let's just go. I'm gonna have to leave with it because it's not doing anything. Okay, so Florida, let's talk about recruiting. The thing I wanted to talk about, I forgot because we talked about it before the show. But so I mentioned to Ian before the show that Danny Warfel has gone on a couple of interviews with a couple of these Florida Gator podcasts, specifically Gator Nation Football Podcast. Shout out to James and to Alan. Both those guys rock. Probably my favorite college football podcast I listen to. And also Allie Wilbur's podcast. She is the wife of Eric Wilbur, the former punter for Florida. And both of those interviews with Allie and with James and Alan, Danny broke down and let it be known that he was a vital part of the search for a new coach for Florida. And Danny was very candid, very honest about everything, said that they were very thorough. They went through the search. They talked to Lane Kiffin. So it wasn't like this, it was no contact or whatever, the rumors. He very laid it down, what happened. And for whatever reason, it just didn't work out. Lane went elsewhere, and, there was no problems with him and Scott, like people were saying. There was no problems with them hiring the GM or whatever. So it is what it is. But I will say Danny was very high on John Summerall, and that's a big reason why he got hired, was because of the fact that Danny, Scott Strickland, and there was another person involved. I think he goes by Duke. I'm not exactly sure. I don't know too much information about that person. But Danny and Scott Strickland were very involved with this search with Turnkey. They worked very hard, several Zooms, countless Zooms. Danny was in person going to these coaches' houses and hiding incognito and like going through garage doors and like meeting with these coaches so that people didn't know. And no one knew that Danny was involved with this. I did not know. It was funny. I tweeted at somebody, or like I had a DM with somebody about like making fun of Danny, like being so happy about the hire. And I was like, come on, Danny, like what? Like, is this propaganda? But then little did I know that Danny was really like instrumental in everything. And it was funny because I'm like, Danny's credibility with the University of Florida is through the roof. I don't think there is another person in the entire like player, alumni, university, officials, alumni, like anyone that has been involved with the school. No one has nearly the length, the height of credibility that Danny Warfel has, and it goes to show because the guy is the real deal. He is honest. He's going to tell the truth, and he doesn't sugarcoat things. And that is such a breath of fresh air to hear it coming from him. And he was honest about it. He's like, I don't know if it's going to work. He's like, I hope it does, because John Summerall seems like the real deal, the real McCoy. And, but Danny said, like, it could not work. It may end up blowing up in our faces. And then he looks bad. But it's like, this is the crapshoot that you have with these coaches. Yeah. And I don't know. I am grateful for Danny. I've been a huge fan of his ever since I was a little kid. And, I got to watch him play for many years. And, to have him potentially be the savior of the University of Florida's football program for the second time, it's like I'm like ready to contact Pope Leo and be like, can you thank this man? Because this is just ridiculous. And it's fitting, of course, someone like Danny would come along and completely, selflessly involved. He did not get paid for this position, volunteered several hours to work on this, to investigate, interview, like everything. And it's like, man, we as Gator fans owe this man so much to like the entirety of this program. And I'm glad that these interviews are coming out, because it needs to be known that Danny did this stuff, because a lot of rumors go around saying whatever. And it's like Danny brought truth to form and was like, this is what happened. This is what did not happen. And he's happy with the results. And I'm glad that it came out like it did. And I'm glad that if you guys see those interviews, check them out. They're both on, one's on YouTube for Alley's, and then Gator Nation Football Podcast is on Spotify. But the one thing I did want to mention, the recruiting though, and that's what really was huge today, because today is early signing day, and Florida was able to basically sign everyone that was committed except for one, I believe, that didn't come. And,
the running back.
Yeah, and so like that is tremendous to go, firing the coach a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, and then to get to early signing day and sign all but one is a Herculean effort by all involved, like the NIL, Florida Victorious, all those guys and gals, Katie Turner, Brandon Spikes was huge on the social media stuff. Did you see any of that?
Yeah, I saw.
Yeah, Spikes was great. He's hilarious. It's real, I don't know how to describe it. It's just likable stuff. Like, it's like, oh, that's funny and like entertaining stuff. So he really knocked it out of the park there. And, to get that recruiting effort without a coach until they just found out 2 days ago is tremendous. But you have thoughts on early signing day before we move on? Or
I'll make it quick. It was definitely good to see that really there was only one decommitment, so to say. But I'll attest to that that might have been like, they were more sold on the brand. One of the first things Summerall did was contact the recruits. They had a big Zoom meeting and all that. So he made it very clear, like, this was a priority. Getting a guy like Davian Gross too, who was wavering, was a big deal, because he is the highest, he was the highest rated guy in the class. And it was even more impressive that they hung on to. I'm sorry?
Percy Harvin-esque.
Yeah. Because he runs like a insane tracks, right? I think he won the track high school championship or something. Yeah. it was especially impressive because he's from like Frisco in Texas, so you don't have him in your backyard and can like
Oh,
just be like grow up with Florida. They did a great job on hanging on to him. Also, shout out to a local guy, Will Griffin from Jesuit, right, literally right next to Raymond James Stadium in Tampa.
yep.
My old high school coach at Clearwater High, Don Misek, is the offensive coordinator at Jesuit.
Oh,
So
nice.
he was kind of in the front lines with his recruitment. But yeah, so other than that, they did a great job. It wasn't like the bottom fell out like it did with Penn State, or nobody really flipped or anything like that besides the one. But they did a good job hanging guys on, and now going into the final signing day period and the transfer portal, especially, roster retention and acquisition is going to be paramount for Summerall to succeed.
And how are you feeling now after like kind of like a cooling off period about the hire?
Win games and I won't care.
Okay, and I figured I'm the same way because it's like you can win the press conference, which he did. He did great, and he's charismatic, and he's funny, and he's a big guy, and he's like.
I'll tell you the same thing I told somebody at work. Press conferences don't get you to beat Tennessee and Georgia.
Yeah, that's true. That's all that matters because we've lost 5 games in a row to Georgia. It's time to start again. But I will say, he lost to Georgia like 62-17 his last year playing at Kentucky. So I guarantee he hates Georgia just as much as we do. So like that hatred will boil over into these games, and I am excited because that's exactly what fueled Steve Spurrier to annihilate them for over a decade, and that is exactly what Kirby Smart did again. So hopefully the cycle continues, and we can smash those Bulldogs. Okay, all right, let's get into it. So this is the preview show for the conference championship games. We did all the rundown of the teams we cover. So let's go over the games that we're going to be watching here on Saturday or Friday and Saturday. So the first couple of games we've got, I'm going to let Ian do some of these first ones, and we'll talk some about the other group of 5 games. But let's do these first 2. The first one, we've got the Sun Belt game, championship game. It's Troy versus James Madison, Bob Chesney's team. So, Ian, I think you know more about this game than I do, so I'm going to let you take the reins here.
Yeah, so this is definitely on paper a mismatch. James Madison, like we were saying with Chesney, has just been on a war path right now, just tearing through the Sun Belt. And it's especially interesting because with the divisions that they are, it would have been Old Dominion rematching James Madison if there were no divisions. But Sun Belt is the last one to have East and West divisions, so Troy, drew the luck end of it. The interesting thing to note is that James Madison and Troy are actually like second and third in total defense in the Sun Belt, but Troy's offense is third to last in the Sun Belt overall in total offensive production. Meanwhile, James Madison is third. So I feel like in this one, I feel like James Madison will have their way with Troy. I mean, the spread was like 20. I mean, it might get that bad, but I just don't see Troy's offense, especially against this James Madison defense, getting enough points on the board. So I'll take the Dukes winning this one and potentially causing havoc. And one of the reasons we put this on is because with the ACC championship potentially going to Duke, the rule is the highest ranked conference champions. If Duke wins unranked, James Madison would be in as the other highest ranked conference champion. So I think they get it done. And I'm going to go with James Madison running away with it. I'll go with a 38-17 win for the Dukes.
I mean, I have even heard that it may even be because like it's considered the Power Four and then another conference winner, like the highest conference winner there. But it could potentially be no ACC conference winner and then maybe 2 group of 5 champions. Especially if it's James Madison and which is crazy. I never would have thought I'd see 2 group of 5s in here, but I would actually like to see it. I honestly think that like a team like North Texas, if they can get some turnovers, they have a chance against some of these playoff teams because they can score at a pretty high clip. But I'm going to go with like probably James Madison because I know more of them. I've seen them play this year, and they've got a pretty good offense. Troy, I don't know a ton of. They lost to Clemson in a close one. They beat Southern Miss in like their best win all year. But James Madison beat Washington State, who played some teams tough this year. So I'm going to go with James Madison wins like, I don't know, 31 to like 17. Okay, let's move on to the American Conference Championship game. It's in New Orleans at Tulane. It's Tulane against North Texas. So my thing with North Texas is, and a lot of what my research is whenever I'm doing these previews, I like to look at the two most emblematic games that these teams have played in like either recent or they most exemplify what these teams are. So, for instance, with North Texas, I'm looking at their game where they lost to USF 63-36 because I want to understand how they lost. And then with the game that they won that I have in the example is that they beat Navy 31-17. So I'm going to look at how they won and how they were able to beat Navy. Because those are probably the two toughest games that North Texas played all year. In those two games, the one that they lost, they were a -2 turnover margin. And then the game that they won against Navy, they were a +3 turnover margin. In the game that they won, they had short fields that they could maximize offensive output on. And Hawkins had 4 TDs really quickly. And so they were able to take advantage of those turnovers and win that game against Navy. And then conversely, against USF, they were not, and they were making a lot of turnovers and giving the ball back to USF a ton, even though in the beginning of the game, the reverse was actually happening when USF was turning the ball over. So they ended up turning the ball over like 5 times in the game, and they lose the game immensely, 63-36. So my key with North Texas is turnovers. If they can create turnovers and eliminate the mistakes on their end on offense, they're more than likely going to be able to have a high output on offense. Tulane, on the other hand, in the games that I looked at for them, they lost to UTSA 48-26, and they beat Duke 34-27. Their defense came out really well against Duke. Mensa, the former quarterback at Tulane, had a good game, but they were able to eliminate the run game for the most part. Duke only had, I don't have it on here, but Duke didn't have very much yards running the ball. So that'll be a key. With North Texas, they like to run the ball with Hawkins a lot. And I think if they can eliminate that, that stands out to me that they've got a good chance here. That loss to UTSA does stand out, though, because that was a very bad loss, and they did not look good in that game. Retzlaff, he struggled, 2 interceptions. Again, with North Texas, they will take advantage of those mistakes, so you cannot do the same thing here. He did not have any interceptions against Duke, which saved them. They broke even on the turnover margin in that game. I think there was 1 turnover apiece. And, the thing that stands out to me is eliminate Hawkins in the run game, turnover battle, and then Retzlaff. I don't know. I don't love Retzlaff a ton. I think Mestamaker is a way better talent. I think Retzlaff, as long as he eliminates mistakes, I think they've got a shot. But again, I think their biggest attribute for them winning is probably a defensive output that kind of eliminates North Texas a little bit, and the turnover battle as well. Okay, so I'm going to say Tulane wins. I think Tulane has more talent than North Texas. I like North Texas's wide receiver core as a whole. Individually, I don't love them. I think they're like their sum is greater than their parts, and I think that may be the problem here, that maybe they can the defense for Tulane can get some stops and they can stay ahead of the game, much like the Memphis game. So I'm going to go with Tulane winning. I'm going to say like 34 to like 28. What do you got?
One thing to note in this game, and especially with North Texas is going to try to win via shootout. I put up over 40, 50 points almost every game this year. Obviously, turnovers are going to be key, like you said. If Retzlaff is as accurate as he's been the last couple of weeks, and the more, I think what's helping North Texas right now, too, is how balanced they're playing. They've been handing the ball off to Hawkins and having more success, so it's not totally reliant on just this air raid attack. But one thing to note is defensively, Tulane does have the better defense than North Texas right now. But North Texas's weakness on defense, while kind of near each other in the AAC, they are in the 100 ranked in rushing defense. And that has kind of been Tulane's bread and butter. Retzlaff broke the school record for rushing touchdowns, and guys like Javin Gordon, Murray McClure, those guys are, to complement Retzlaff in that rushing attack. And, of course, Retzlaff can throw it if he has to. I think in this one, it's going to come down. It's kind of a clashing of styles because North Texas is kind of known as this high-octane offense. They can score quick. They hit a lot of explosive plays. Tulane has usually been more methodical this season with the rushing attack, especially with Retzlaff. The one thing to note looking up, these teams have only played each other 3 times. And Tulane has won all of them, but all of them have been by 1 score. It's either been by a field goal or a touchdown, and I think this game will be the same. I think I'm going to go with I like the attack that North Texas has right now with Hawkins and Messamaker. Messamaker has really been turning it on down the stretch and has had more impressive wins right now than Tulane. So I think North Texas gets it done, and they get the win. And I'm going to go Mean Green winning I will go shootout. I'll go 38-34 for North Texas.
Okay, let's move on to Saturday. Big 12 championship game in Dallas. Texas Tech going up against BYU. Okay, so for this one and a couple of these, there's rematches in these games. So this one, I have Texas Tech with their loss to Arizona State. They lost 26-22. But that one kind of stands out because Hammond was the starting quarterback for Texas Tech in that and not Baron Morton. So it's a little tough to really decipher what really from that you can. So I'm not going to look at that one as much. With BYU, the game that stands out was the Utah game. They won 24-21. In that one, LJ Martin had a really good game. They kind of held Dampier a little bit in check, forced him into a turnover, an interception, and kind of limited their run game, which is huge because Utah usually puts up like 300, 400 yards of rushing in a game. So they had 226, but 226 is quite low for Utah for the most part. But as far as the matchup between the two, let's get into that because that's the more telling thing here. Texas Tech won 29-7 in Lubbock. Baron Morton had 219 yards, a touchdown. Dickey had a great game, 121 yards. Williams ran for 77. Virgil, the wide receiver, had 54 yards. Eakin had 52. Bear Bachmeier, not a terrible game, but he did throw an interception. And they also had another 2 turnovers besides that. So they were -3 in the turnover margin. BYU in that game was held to 255 total yards, 67 on the ground, which is pretty low for a BYU team that likes to run the ball. They were also held on conversions to 4 of 14. Texas Tech did allow a ton of sacks in that game. Baron Morton was not able to escape any of the pressure that was coming from the BYU front defensive line, and BYU only allowed 1 sack. So I will say from that first game, that first matchup, it definitely looks like Texas Tech should be favored. But I will say I've been a huge proponent of BYU all year, even to last year. And I say it, I keep repeating it. These guys are very well coached. They're very disciplined. They tackle well. They make plays. They create turnovers. They make plays in the special teams. And Bear Bachmeier is very efficient and very good at being a quarterback. And I will say I'm probably going to go with Texas Tech because I love Texas Tech just as much. I love both of these teams. I hope that both of these teams get to the playoff. It will be a terrible shame if BYU loses this game and does not get in. I don't know how you can put other teams like Notre Dame and Alabama above them, especially if Alabama gets a third loss here. If Alabama gets a third loss, like they should not have a shot at the playoff. I don't care. I really do not care. They do not deserve it. This BYU team, 11-1, played some tough teams in conference. I think they're well deserved of that playoff spot. With that in mind, I like Texas Tech in this game. I'm going to say it's going to be a squeaker. I think BYU comes to play. I think the fact that it was a road game for them the last time kind of made it a little bit harder to win that game. But now it's a neutral site. I say it's going to be very close. So I'm going to say it's going to be like a 28-27 game, and maybe like Texas Tech scores late to go up that 1 point, and they stop BYU on the next possession, and they win by 1 point. What do you got, Ian?
So I want to state too, was because we didn't really talk about the whole playoff ranking too. Out of the three teams, a lot of people are talking about Miami, Texas, BYU. Out of those three, BYU is the one that should be in, and it is because let's think about this. Okay, we're talking about Texas. I'm sorry, Texas shouldn't be in. You lost to a really bad Florida team.
Yep.
So I'm sorry. Yes, you beat A&M, you beat Vandy, you won these games, but you also lost to Ohio State. You lost to a really bad Florida team. I'm sorry, you shouldn't be in. Bama, if they get their third loss, lost to Florida State, who lost to that worst Florida team.
Yeah.
So how do they get to stay in with 3 losses after a god-awful loss? Same thing with Miami, Notre Dame. That whole mess it's a catastrophe. But BYU's would only have 2 losses, so to say, to the same team in Texas Tech that we have been saying is the most like Death Star type team this year that just goes in, kills everybody, and have a nice day. Texas Tech has the best defense in the country, and they've proven it week in and week out. So, in my opinion, I think this game, BYU shouldn't have to win to be in. I think BYU should be in regardless. Same with Tech. If Tech loses, they shouldn't be hurt in any way. That being said, also shout out to both of these programs, Texas Tech and BYU, because this game is already a sellout in Dallas and is projected to be one of the highest attended Big 12 championship games. So shout out to those fan bases, because I know they're not traditionally looked at as they should be, where they're very like rabid fan bases that they are. Anyways, this game, here's the thing. We talk a lot about repeat matchups and stuff and how usually the second time around it's not as well suited for the team that won. I feel like this one, though, Tech's got the playbook on how to win these games, not just against BYU, but just these games in general. Now, credit, it is at a neutral site, very different situation than playing in Lubbock that BYU had to do. So I think BYU is going to make it a better fight. They definitely learned from Texas Tech, but they're going to have to find ways to cross the 50-yard line more consistently and find a way to get through that Texas Tech defense. And I think it'll be close, but I feel like Texas Tech's defense has proven me right more often than not. And I'm going to go Red Raiders winning like you a close one. I'll go with let's do like a 27-21 type win, like last second touchdown or something like that. With that being said, BYU should absolutely still be in the playoff, regardless of what happens this weekend.
Yeah, exactly. What was your final score again? Say it again.
27-21 Tech.
Okay. Next one we've got is I left the Gator lights on. Sorry about that, friends. Georgia, Alabama in the SEC championship game in Atlanta. As far as this game goes, I think, again, this is a rematch of a game played earlier this year. So the games that I have that I looked at, as far as the details, Georgia beat Ole Miss 43-35. Chambliss had a really good game in that one. They kind of held Lacey in check. The receivers had decent games. Stribling had 96 yards. But Stockton had a really good game. He had 289 yards and 4 TDs. And then they were able to run the ball very well as well. They had 221 rushing yards. Conversely, Bama lost to Oklahoma 23-21. Simpson had a good game, but their turnovers were really the difference. They were -3 in the turnover margin. And so Oklahoma was able to take advantage of short fields and get them in position to score early. So they didn't have to get a ton of yards. So it's kind of deceptive because Oklahoma only had 212 yards, but they had short fields, so they scored enough that they didn't really have to move the ball a ton. But with the rematch, the first contest, I'll look into that real quick, and then I'll give my opinion on this game. Bama won the first game in Athens, 24-21. Simpson had a great game, 276 yards, 2 TDs. I believe no turnovers. They were +1 in the turnover margin, Bama was. Jam Miller only had 46 yards. Jam Miller's kind of had an off and on year this year, so you would hope that he can really kind of take off in this game. I know there's another running back, I can't remember his name specifically, for Bama that has kind of taken the load since Miller's been kind of injured and not as effective this year. Horton had a good game. Ryan Williams did a little bit, not too much. Jeremy Bernard had some plays, had a touchdown. They had 397 total yards, Bama did in that game, 117 on the ground. But they kept UGA in check outside of a couple of explosive plays. They had 227 yards rushing, but it was mainly because of like 2 or 3 really big explosives. Outside of that, they only had 130 yards passing. Bama was 13 of 19 on conversions, while Georgia was 2 of 8. This is a tough one because I feel like Stockton will be the reason, it will be the difference in this game. Either Stockton can play up to that Ole Miss potential, which I think because Ole Miss's defense is not as good as Bama's, I think that kind of favored him there. I don't think he's going to have the same performance like he had against Ole Miss. I think it's more likely like what he had last week against Georgia Tech, which he had like 76 passing yards. I feel like it's going to be the same thing here. I feel like Bama's going to keep him in check. And if that's the case, then I feel like Bama's going to win because Simpson doesn't turn the ball over a ton. I love the playmakers for Bama, Horton, Ryan Williams, Jeremy Bernard, and I like Jam Miller a lot if he's healthy. And also Cuevas for Bama as well. He's a great tight end. So I think Bama wins this one. I think it can be close, but like not too close, and maybe like Bama scores a late one to go up like 8 or 9 points or something. So I'm going to say Bama wins like 30-20. What do you got?
The one common thread with Kalen DeBoer against Georgia is that Bama has started fast. Obviously, the game last year in Tuscaloosa, they went out to that ridiculous like 28-something lead.
Yeah.
Blew it, but then, they had, God incarnate and Ryan Williams that day to score 3 more touchdowns and escape with the win. Same thing with this one in Athens this year, where they started fast. They went up to like 17-7. They had a 10-point lead twice, and then they put enough difference between them. Georgia has to know this. Kirby Smart has to know this, that you cannot have Bama in those first 2 quarters score more than maybe like 10 points to have any chance of this game. That does not mean your offense needs to score more. You just have to make sure when you're going into the 3rd and 4th quarter, it is a 1-score game. You're within it. because they were in that third, fourth quarter, but they were playing catch up for the other 3 quarters in the game in Athens this year. The other thing to note too, you mentioned the conversions. Bama was 13 for 18 or something like that, because they were in these high percentage areas on third downs, while Georgia was, not as successful because it was 3rd and 1. I think the difference maker in this one, obviously, I agree with you. It's going to come down to Gunnar Stockton, but especially the passing game for Georgia, because they have the running attack to complement the passing game, where Bama hasn't really needed that. Now, here's the thing. If Jan Miller goes off and Ty Simpson does what we know he can do, Alabama has this no problem. But Georgia knows very well that if you stop Alabama's rushing attack, you can force Simpson into making mistakes. One example, look at Oklahoma. Oklahoma did a very good job of dissecting how to stop that offense, and that is still one of the best. I still say Oklahoma is the best defense in the country, and right behind them are these two. So I'm sure they were taking notes in this one. So Georgia had to be seeing what Oklahoma was doing to Ty Simpson, stop the running game, put a cog in that, take the cog out of that engine, and then you can start taking your shots on Simpson. I feel like in this one, I know I just mentioned second-time matchups and all that, and Georgia hasn't won. The last time Georgia beat Bama south of the Mason-Dixon was 2007, because the national championship game was in Indianapolis. So, and they've never beaten Alabama in an SEC championship. I don't know. I feel better with Georgia in this one, honestly, because I feel like with that defense, especially with how Oklahoma attacked Ty Simpson in the rushing game in Alabama, Georgia is going to do the same thing. If they keep Bama to 10, maybe even 14 points, and they're within striking distance going into halftime, Georgia can come from behind and win it. So I'm going to take the Bulldogs winning. I'm going to go with let's do a 24-20 win, like a real, low scoring one.
Yeah, that was basically what the score was the last time. So
yeah,
it probably will be close to around that. So, okay, speaking of another rematch, in the ACC championship game in Charlotte, Virginia going up against Duke. They played each other earlier, not too long ago, and Virginia won 34-17. Chandler Morris, 316 yards, 2 TDs. He did have 2 interceptions. Taylor had a really good game, the running back for Virginia, 133 yards and 2 TDs. Whaley also had a decent game for 62 yards. Harris, the stud receiver for Virginia, had 161 yards and a touchdown. Mensa, not so much, 213 yards and a TD. They like to pass the ball more than to run the ball a ton. Duke was held to 42 rush yards in that game. Similar to what that Georgia game, the Georgia-Alabama game, UVA was 13 of 19 on conversions, while Duke was 6 of 15. Duke allowed 4 sacks, so Virginia was able to get 4 sacks in that game. And Virginia was actually a -1 in the turnover margin with those 2 Morris interceptions. So the other games of note that I have is Louisville game for Virginia. Virginia won 30-27. It was a close game in overtime. They did not play great in that one. They had I think it was 2 defensive scores, right? Wasn't that what happened?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So they were kind of fortunate to win that game. They didn't have their best game. Duke did beat Wake Forest, a very solid Wake Forest team. And Mensa had a decent game, 268, 2 TDs, no turnovers. They were +4 in the turnover margin, so huge for them there. They were 8 of 13 on conversions. And Robbie Ashford did have a good game, though. He had 342 yards, 2 TDs, and an interception. He also ran for 44 and another touchdown. So with all that, this Duke team is capable. Mensa is a very good quarterback, but the rest of the pieces are not as good as Mensa. So I feel like Virginia can score, and with Morris, if he's healthy, they're a very good offense, much like the last time they played, and the fact that they beat Virginia Tech pretty soundly as well on Saturday. So I like Virginia in this game pretty handedly. I'm going to say like a 27-14 game. What do you got, Ian?
I agree too. I think Virginia, especially because this hasn't been it's only been technically 3 weeks since they played each other, and
Yeah.
I got a feeling Virginia knows how to attack Duke right now, especially because Duke's defense hasn't really been that terrific. Mensa and the offense has really been the highlight for Duke and what got them there, but the defense has been too inconsistent. And Virginia, they have the third ranked defense in the ACC, and we know how good the offense can be. So I think Virginia will win comfortably. I'll go with let's do a 35-17 win.
Okay, moving on to the last one. Probably one of the bigger conference championship games we've ever had. Number 1 versus number 2, Indiana versus Ohio State in the Big Ten. The Heisman favorites going at it. Like literally, it's a winner-take-all game. Like whoever wins this game wins the Big Ten, wins the first-round playoff bye, wins probably the Heisman. So there's a lot on the line in this game. It's in the state of Indiana, so I think there's going to be a lot of Indiana fans there. They seem to be like building up this like fan base now. Obviously, basketball is number 1, but like now they're really trying to like believe in this team. They're undefeated, just like Ohio State's undefeated. The 2 games I have for both, since they have not played each other yet, I've got for Indiana. Indiana beat Iowa 20-15. Mendoza had a decent game. He did have 1 pick. He had 233 yards, 2 TDs. Surratt had a great game, 132 yards. Cooper had 55 yards and a TD. Gronowski for Iowa in that game, kind of limited, 144 yards passing, an interception. Their running back for Iowa, Moulton, ran for 75 yards. Indiana was 6 of 15 on conversions. They kept Iowa to 7 of 16. They only had 4 penalties in that game, so that's kind of huge. They limited the mistakes there. They were +1 in the turnover margin because they were able to force 2 turnovers, especially that one late. In this game, they had 337 yards, 233 passing, 104 on the ground, and they kept Iowa to only 192 passing. So, the game in that one specifically, Cignetti said how much of how important this game was, beating Iowa, especially after they smoked Illinois. He knew that going on the road to Iowa was going to be a tough challenge, and they were able to get that win. Conversely, the next game I have was beating Oregon 30-20. There was an interception return for a touchdown, and I think that was Oregon. And then Mendoza did not have a good game. He had that pick 6, and Surratt had another good game. Again, Surratt is one of their best players, best receiver. Cooper is solid as well. They kept Dante Moore in check for the most part, 186 yards passing, 2 interceptions. And they kept the run game in check, 81 yards on the ground. Their first down wise between the two, Indiana was able to get 23 first downs to Oregon's 14. So again, moving the ball, Indiana is very good about getting first downs, converting on third downs. Now with Ohio State, I looked at both Illinois and the Michigan games. Illinois, Ohio State smoked them pretty significantly. They kept Altmaier somewhat in check, but the run game was really limited for Illinois. Only 47 rush yards total. Ohio State was 9 of 15 on conversions. They got 4 sacks in the game, and they didn't allow any, and they were +3 in the turnover margin. So huge difference there. In the Michigan game, Michigan was just throttled by the Ohio State defense. Underwood for Michigan only had 63 yards. He had an interception and only 1 yard rushing. And then the run game for Michigan, 100 yards total and only 63 passing total. So it was 163 between what they got total. So it's not a very good game for Michigan. Great game for Ohio State's defense. They held Michigan to only 1 of 9 conversions. In all of this totality, with all this information, okay, I have liked Indiana since last year. I love Cignetti, and I know, like, there's 2 teams I also like in these games. Texas Tech and BYU. I love Cignetti. I think the guy is a phenomenal coach. I think he makes the most of his teams. People have talked about success rate with these guys with Indiana, which they're right up there with everyone as far as success on both offense and defense. I think they're going to win this game. I like Ohio State, though, too, because Ohio State has Julian Sayin, Jeremiah Smith, Bo Jackson running the ball, Donaldson as well, Carnell Tate. There are a ton of pieces with Ohio State, and their defense is phenomenal. But I think Indiana is going to rue the day or win the day here, and I think Indiana does enough. I think it's going to be really close. I think it's going to be like a 24-23 game, and then maybe there's like a safety involved that kind of changes the complexity of the game. And then, like, late in this game, I'm going to say, like, it's a field goal. Like, they get a field goal late that Indiana does, and they go up and they win it. What do you got for this game, man?
Yeah, and I won't probably go oh, excuse me. I won't go into specifics that much in terms of stats because you already hit most of the spots I was going to talk about. But with this game, me, the historian, looking up, obviously this is going to be one of the games. One of the things to know, obviously, Indiana's never been to the Big Ten championship, and Ohio State, this is like their second home. The last time Ohio State lost a Big Ten championship was 2013 against Michigan State. Mm-hmm. So ever since then, anytime Ohio State's been in the Big Ten championship, it's almost an automatic win. Now, for Indiana, the last time they beat Ohio State was 1988, and my hockey fact is Wayne Gretzky just won his last Stanley Cup with the Edmonton Oilers because he was about to
do it. I knew you were going to do it.
I haven't hit one of those in a while, so I had to get one in. So that's the thing is, like, usually I side with history, but if Indiana's taught me anything is that history doesn't mean anything because they've just defied expectations in this 2-year run. Now, Ohio State clearly has the best defense in the Big Ten. Now, right behind them is Oregon, and Indiana did a good job converting on opportunities against Oregon in that game. And the other thing to note, too, is that Ohio State, Michigan was the toughest team they have played since Texas. So Indiana's been through Oregon, Illinois, a lot of these teams, so maybe more battle-tested. But really, both of these teams have explosive offenses, great quarterbacks, really good defenses. It's unstoppable force meets immovable object. But yeah, I said, like I was saying, usually I side with history, but Indiana's taught me that doesn't mean anything. I'm going to take Hoosiers winning in their backyard in Indianapolis, and I'll go Indiana wins the shootout. I'll go a 38-33 win for Indiana.
You think it's going to be that high scoring?
I think so. I think the defense will get the stops when necessary, but if this is where it's going to be the nerd in me, punting may be the biggest thing here. Because if they get the ball, say either Indiana or Ohio State gets the ball on the right side or, better side of the 30 or something like that where they're closer to midfield, shorter fields equal, more results in the scoreboard. We've seen that all year, especially with these two. So I think that might be the keys where the field position is when those defenses get the stops.
Okay. Last thing I want to say before we go. The number 1 receiver in the country, Chris Henry Jr., just followed USF football on X.
Okay. All right. That's a good sign. Okay. That's nice.
Wow. Can you imagine that? The number 1 wide receiver goes to USF.
This is the equivalent of me playing my NCAA games, and I could just, when I'm at USF, and can get like 25 stars. This
is ridiculous. I'm blown away that it actually happened. Like,
yeah,
it was talked about. Like, of course, you look at it like Seth's list, and like I tweeted about it, and like people talk about it, like Brian Hartline. Yeah, we'd love to get him, but not realistic. And not only was it not only realistic, but Rob Higgins was literally working on it for like 5 years or whatever. And it's just like, man, it's just, this is phenomenal. I love this. I love that the basketball program is doing well.
Yeah.
I love that Rob Higgins is there. Just, man, I love this university, and I'm so happy. I cannot wait for the on-campus stadium. I'm so stoked. Do you have any more thoughts before we go?
No, just excited for how this is going to go and the absolute catastrophe that is going to be selection day the day after.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, folks, Saturday or Sunday is not a normal show. We're not going to be on at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We're going to be early. We're going to do it before the rankings show, the CFP rankings come out on 12 Eastern. We're going to be on at 11 Eastern. We'll do our recap of the games, and then we'll go into who we think we want for our teams. I might reach out to Seth to see if he wants to come jump on.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Talk some stuff, we'll go through the normal show, do the rankings once it comes out, and then have maybe Seth on to talk about Brian Hartline and John Summerall. So I'll reach out to him, and hopefully we'll have that. So look for us at 11 Eastern and 8 p.m. or 8 a.m. Pacific. So I got to be up early. I'll probably be up at like 5 to recap these games. So I'll be up super early. But look for that. Ian's article. Did you see that? Did you look it up? Did you check out the title that I put on it?
Yeah, so it was I'm probably smart changed from what I had.
I liked it, but I was like, I don't think I'm going to change this.
Yeah.
And so check out Ian's article on Strickland. I know we're tough on him, but I think this is just, a little bit of venting, which I'm glad you did. And we need that sometimes. So Ian's article is on haterradio.com. For our socials, just type in Hater Radio, comes right up for all of them. Ian, what are your socials before we go?
At Twitter, it's at G5Gibson, and at YouTube and Instagram, it's at G_Gator_G.
Nice. Okay, that's the show, y'all. We'll talk to you on Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. Take care. Enjoy these games.